What's going on, everybody? C4 here, and welcome back to today's video, continuing with our 2019 NFL Draft content. Earlier in the week, we did my top 10 underrated players for the draft, and now we need to do the corresponding video where I look at my top 10 overrated videos. And where we did the underrated video, those players weren't really listed in any particular order. It was just 10 underrated prospects. Whereas today's video, it's still not exactly like a refined order, but definitely I would like to think my top 3 in this list are definitely like the players that I think are the most overrated. I don't get the hype. I don't understand their draft positioning for, where I may have put them in my own mock draft, but more so the consensus around the scouting community, the consensus around teams' fan bases, players that teams have fallen in love with, players that fans have fallen in love with that I just don't get whatsoever. So let's jump into my top 10 overrated prospects for the upcoming 2019 draft. Anyway, I guess I do want to preface that really anytime you talk about like overrated players, it almost has that perceived notion that, oh, C4 also must hate this player. This player sucks. And then watch one of these guys get drafted by the Eagles, and then I have to change my tune so they got no. This list is purely based upon, for me, the tape, and more so it correlates with where they're getting drafted. Like, for example, we'll just throw last year, for example. Last year, I thought, huge fan of the channel, Darius Leonard was overdrafted in the second round. Didn't think he was a terrible player. He's my goddamn adopted son. I love him. But I just thought that was just a little bit of an overdraft. And I thought, obviously, Darius Leonard, I had him more as a 4th round grade. And if they would have still got him in the 4th round, but ultimately went in the 2nd round and was a tremendous pick for the Colts. So I just need to make sure you understand that it's not like I hate these players and I want them to fail for the sake of me looking smart. It's just I don't currently agree with where most people, the consensus in general, have them going in the draft. So without further ado, almost 2 minutes in, let's get into it. At number 10, I have Kaden Smith, tight end from Stanford. Far too many people have him over clearly better tight ends in this draft class. It does seem like the reason why we have him at 10, that more and more people, once they're able to break down all the tape, have him slipping down a little bit. But the fact that you do see him ahead of Foster Moreau, you do see him ahead of Cahale Warning, you do see him ahead of Jay Sternberger in some rare cases. A couple websites still have that up. I'd probably take that down if I were them. But he's just average at everything, and he has that tight end hype. He's just another Stanford tight end. People think he's going to be the next Zach Ertz or Kobe Fleener or Austin Hooper, where that's just not really the case. A guy like Kaden Smith should be viewed as a late day 3 type prospect, developmental guy that might be able to put it all together and have a nice professional career. But right now, he's always going to be a bubble guy for me. The fact that a lot of people still have him way too high in their tight end rankings. Overrated just a tad. Going to number 9, we have Chris Boyd, the cornerback from Texas. NFL.com has him currently ranked, I think, as number 11 in their cornerback rankings, which is ridiculous. His technique is terrible. Does not have a clear position at the next level in the National Football League. Is he going to be a corner? Is he going to be a safety? Like, he's like a worse Jalen Mills for the most part. Like, he's kind of like viewed upon, like, at least Jalen Mills brings some nice jump ball ability. Jalen Mills is exceptional in the red zone, but when you look at Chris Boyd, he just doesn't have any of the positive qualities that Jalen Mills has either. I think he's a solid tackler for a cornerback, has some all right athletic ability, but I kind of just view him as he'll be a good special teamer. He's going to be a great guy in special teams, a very nice asset to have, and will get drafted because of his special teams ability on day 3. But the fact that, NFL.com, a lot of people, a lot of neutrals, a lot of normies go to look for their draft content, have him as like, a top 10 corner, therefore that's like a 3rd, 4th round pick. Too high. Gross. Going to overrated player number 8, I have Chuma Doga, offensive tackle from USC. He is and there's one of these every year, athletic big school offensive lineman that will get overdrafted. Well, in reality, he has a lot of red flags, has some off the field. Reports say that his interviews were not very good at the combine. He's had a couple injuries throughout his career in college. He's undersized and really is going to have a really, really big boom or bust tag. Now, you can get him on day 3 as a developmental tackle. Maybe worst case scenario, you have him as a swing tackle as a rookie later on in his career. But I mean, the talent is there. There is a ceiling. There is a peak that could be had if he gets the right type of development. But the fact that, even I was guilty of this. I think I had him going, early day 3 in my mock draft. Whereas in reality, because offensive linemen, especially offensive linemen with high ceilings, they always get overdrafted because every team and their dog thinks that they have a really good offensive line coach. Look at how teams consistently give Tom Cable a job. They're gonna think that, whatever, we're gonna get the most out of Doga. We're gonna be the team that develops him into that very high ceiling that he's shown some minimal flashes at USC of being able to reach. So I just think ultimately They're safer prospects, and when I'm drafting offensive linemen in the kind of range that Doga goes, I want guys that are versatile. I want guys that have a chance to be that 6 offensive lineman that dresses on game day. That guy that can play guard, he can play tackle, and those tend to not be the boomer bust type players. So that's just kind of where I'm putting Chuma Doga here. Boomer bust and being vastly overrated for offensive tackle right now. Going to overrated prospect number 7, I have Justin Lane, cornerback from Michigan State. When he came into the combine, we and myself was expecting, because the tape looked pretty damn good, to be an elite athlete, running one of the fastest 40s, especially at his size. And then he just had a good combine, ran a 4.50 flat, 37.5-inch vert, which again, both those numbers are like, they're all right. They're definitely not elite. Definitely was not what I was expecting. And the fact that he's a converted wide receiver, so he's not as technical as the other top 10 cornerbacks. And the fact that he's pretty much consensus top 50 player, regardless of where you're looking at. I just don't agree with that right now. Not saying he's not going to be a good player, but there's a lot of development that needs to be had. And the fact that, top 50 means, second round, too rich for my blood. A guy like Justin Lane, give me late 3rd round, early day 3. So give me 3rd, 4th round grade for him. I'm about to round off, and I'm going to round off on someone that's in day 2, and I'm going to round off. You got to make the overrated list, but does have a lot of traits, a lot of interesting traits. I think he's going to be a better converted wide receiver, Michigan State corner than, say, Tony Lippett, but there's still a lot of work that needs to get done for Justin Lane. And the fact that the biggest thing that you can hang his hat on to be a high selection was his elite athletic talent didn't really show that at the combine. Going to overrated prospect number 6, I have Drew Lock, quarterback from Missouri. And this is more so regarded as him as a top 10 pick, going to the Denver Broncos at number 10. My pro comp for him was Brady Quinn. I just saw a lot of Brady Quinn. We already know what happened with Brady Quinn. There's a lot of just Drew Lock not playing good when he went up against the big dogs. Anytime we had a big game, a big team going up against a tough defense, he failed to show up. And, that is usually something that can follow players to the next level. And do you really want your franchise quarterback not being a winner? Like we saw maybe Baker Mayfield get picked 1st overall by the Browns last year because he was a winner, because he brought those intangibles that I don't necessarily think Drew Lock has. He's a sporadic and streaky passer, and I think he might be the most overdrafted player in this year's draft class. Now, does that mean I think Drew Lock sucks? Does that mean if I'm a QB needy team, I wouldn't want a Drew Lock on my team? No, but give me Drew Lock, late 1st at the most. You can gamble on a QB a little bit later, but I personally think he's a 2nd round quarterback. He's a 2nd round QB. If I'm a QB needy team and he's still there past 33, why not? Why not take the flyer? There are the intangibles there. Had a huge year at Mizzou 2 years ago, even though they had a lot of there's no real air raids in the SEC, but they're as close to it as you could get. He has, he's a decent athlete. You got the prototypical size. There's a lot to like there, but not enough for me at this given point to say he's a 1st round QB, let alone a top 10 player in this year's draft class in relation to where they will get drafted within the top 10. So because of that, gotta make the list. Go to number 5, kind of similar to Drew Lock's ranking, and that is Rashod Gary, defensive lineman from Michigan. And this is more so regarded to him being a top 10 pick only. I think if you pick him between 12 and 25, worth it because of the elite athletic ability, the potential. But the fact that you still see him going to maybe the Detroit Lions, which I've been guilty of mocking him a couple times to the Detroit Lions, but the more and more you got down to, the more and more it just became incredibly difficult to justify a top 10 selection for a guy that in 34 games, 3 years at Michigan, like one of the best defenses, loaded with defensive players, he only has 9.5 sacks, and you're an edge rusher. It's his job to affect the pass, get after the quarterback, and just wasn't able to do it. It's not like he's getting triple teamed all the time like Ed Oliver was at Houston. There was more than enough guys that other people had to worry about when you go against that Michigan defense. Chase Vinovich, you had Mo Hurst, Devin Bush, Khalil Hudson. Like, there's enough guys that have been on that front that you got to worry about. Chris Wormley, I think a couple years ago, was still there with Rashod Gary. So it's just, I can't justify using a top 10 selection. A guy that has 9.5 sacks in 3 years. Like, if that was one season, he was coming off 9.5 sacks last year. Okay, yeah, top 10. But in 3 years, that was he took a lot of snaps there. And I get he's an elite athlete. I get if you have a good DL and get him part of the rotation. Like, I'll tell you right now, if Rashod Gary, for example, goes to Philadelphia at 25, that's a somewhat possibility if he does slip. Nice. He's going to be a very interesting piece to use around on our defense. That's not a bad pick, a bad investment at 25. But a top 10 pick, that's that shit I don't like. Nah. Going to overrated prospect number 4, I have Andre Dillard, offensive tackle from Washington State. He was the Combine Warrior this year, 4.96, tested like top 5 in all the other drills. I kind of just looked at his tape. Looks like Tarzan, plays like Jane. There's one of these guys every year in the first round, and they actually usually tend to be the bust. I don't think he's going to be too bad. He, a lot of scouts coming into the draft had him as the best pass blocker because of the air raid at Washington State, and his pass blocking looks pretty good. But the fact that there's such a big question mark about what he can offer in the run game. Is he that tough Maulers type offensive lineman that you kind of need to have in your mentality when you play this game? I mean, he's consensus first round pick right now. I have him going in the first round. I don't know if I've released a mock draft yet where he is going in the first round, and I think he does have first round traits, but again, it's a big question mark. And I think if there's anyone in this first round that could be considered boom or bust on the offensive line, because there's probably going to be a bunch of offensive linemen going in the first round. There's probably 5 or 6 first round grades. Andre Dillard is that spot, and because you're boomer bust, and I think you're the biggest boomer bust arguably in the second half of the first round, you're gonna have to make the list. But I don't think he's a bad prospect. I think he's an intriguing prospect, and I think there's more than enough teams that are going to be at the back end of the draft there in the first round that are desperate for offensive linemen that will take that gamble. But buyer beware, I guess we could say, with Andre Dillard. Now, my top 3, these are like guys I strongly believe that are vastly, incredibly overrated right now. Everyone else to this point, there's an argument, depending on where they go. Like, there's a lot of that around. These guys here, I just think are straight up overrated. Number 3, I have Ridley, the wide receiver from Georgia. He's a good route runner, has solid hands. That's pretty much it. I think he's from the Georgia offense. That's too much of a cop-out right now because I'm not seeing anything. He looked looked like a jag at the combine. Just another guy. Didn't stand out during the drills. Didn't test well. Like, what is there to like right now with Ridley? And the fact that he's going second round, third round, like, is it just because his brother's Calvin Ridley? Like, they're not the same type of players. I almost want to put this argument more so about the fans. People that aren't super invested, haven't watched a lot of tape, aren't privy to a lot of college football, and just say, you hear the name, Ridley. Oh, he's Calvin Ridley's brother from Georgia. They had that, obviously the national championship game, all that stuff. Like just the moments that kind of were ingrained in your head about Ridley as a prospect. It's not what he is at his core. He's an all right wide receiver. I think he'll be a role player in the National Football League, and you don't draft role players day 2. That's pretty much all I can say about Ridley. I don't necessarily think he's going to be a bust. I mean, if he goes really high, I think he will be a bust, but I just see him as a role player. He's not going to be a rookie game changer like some fan bases that, when you just have people in comments saying, oh, where's Ridley? Why isn't Ridley higher? There's nothing special about him. He's not a bad player, not a great player. He'll be able to find a role, but wide receiver 4, wide receiver 5, somewhere in that territory. Going overrated prospect number 2, I have Trayvon Mullen, cornerback from Clemson. Pretty much consensus top 50 player or higher. I know Matt Miller on Bleacher Report has him he's had him as a top 3 corner for a long time. I don't know where he's updated that. And literally his tape showed that he's a good athlete that can kind of tackle. That's it. Wasn't targeted a lot at Clemson. They go to the other side of the field. He got that Nnamdi Asomugha reputation that obviously maybe more so as a Philadelphia Eagle fan that got burnt by Nnamdi Asomugha. That still resonates with me when I hear that tag. I'm just like, uh-oh, that's not good. I just don't see it. I think for me, Trayvon Mullen, good athlete. I think he might be a guy that could transition to be more of a DB in general, not an outside corner, but a guy that can play a little bit of safety, a little bit of a hybrid. That's round 3. But the fact that some mocks still have him going in the first round, a lot of mocks have him top 50 is ridiculous to me. He is a top 100 player. He's a guy that's, I would not feel any more comfortable getting him in the third round. And that's also given the fact that he needs to develop. He needs to go to a team that has a proven track record of developing cornerbacks. Like someone like Seattle would be a nice fit for him. But if he goes to a team that's going to expect him to have minimal development, maybe they don't have a great track record of developing corners, and they want him to produce right away, you got to get burned. You got to get burned by drafting someone like Trayvon Mullen. And the number 1 overrated player in this year's draft for me is Parris Campbell, the wide receiver from Ohio State. And this is more so regarding his first round hype. I think he's a weapon. That's it. I've seen how many mock drafts have him going to the Baltimore Ravens right now. It's all over NFL.com. And that's where so many people like to use and look for their draft content. What are you doing? Why are you misleading these people? Parris Campbell has a worse route running tree than DK Metcalf, which is the big glaring negative of DK. And he's not, he's a great athlete, but he's not really the same type of freak athlete that DK is. He has inconsistent hands. He's a niche weapon. He's a guy that just pretty much ran slants and takes screens at Ohio State. That's what he did at a high level. That has a spot in today's NFL, but not in the first round. I mean, a top 50 pick is absolutely laughable. It's ridiculous to me. I think he's a very intriguing weapon. If he's there at the very end, the dire moments of the second round, into anywhere in the 3rd round, sure, be creative. Have him be that gadget player on your offense, because a good gadget player that could eventually develop into a wide receiver, somewhat similar to what we saw with Tyreek Hill and his development, it can pay a lot of dividends for a team. But in the 1st round, ridiculous. And I think there might be a chance he goes in the 1st round. What, he ran a 4.31 at, like, plus 6 feet tall. It could happen. It could happen. Someone could fall in love with the traits, and I think that would be the most ridiculous 1st round pick possible in this year's draft. And I had to put it out there. Had to stick my neck on the line. I think right now, in terms of hype, Parris Campbell is easily the most overrated player in this year's draft class. So, guys, a little bit more of a negative view on some prospects. What do you guys think in the comment section below? Who are your most overrated prospects? I definitely want to hear back to you. Make a bold claim if you want. We can come back to this video this time next year and see who was right, see who made the bold claim and was correct. I'll probably put it in next year's video and give you guys some credit. As always, though, if it's your first time stopping by, don't be afraid to hit that subscribe button, smash the like button if you enjoyed. And until next time, it's C4 saying peace out.